Welcome back. So the ANC says its relationship with the United States is not governed by personalities who occupy the White House. This is, of course, ahead of tomorrow's U.S. elections. The party's International Relations Committee held a retreat deliberating on its foreign policy stance. ANC NEC and International Relations Committee member Thandi Moraka is in studio with us. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Evening, Naledi, and evening to your viewers.
Yeah, we really do appreciate your time. You've come out of this retreat, of course, and we're going to get into other elements and discussions that have taken place during this retreat. But tomorrow, of course, a really big day as the world watches the U.S. elections. We have, of course, heard from the Deputy Secretary General at a press briefing, essentially saying that the ANC is willing to work with whoever takes the reins in the U.S. But talk to me a little bit about how the U.S. elections were discussed during this retreat, some concerns around a Kamala or Trump presidency for the party.
Naledi, in the retreat, we never took time to reflect on the U.S. elections, or rather the candidates that are competing for the White House in the form of occupying it as presidents. We just focused on our ANC's foreign policy, but we can't ignore what is happening in the U.S. We want to echo the very sentiments of the ANC in line with our foreign policy, where we respect each other's sovereignty of every state, and we want to leave it in the hands of the people of the U.S. to chart a way forward on who do they want to send to the White House to lead them.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the theme of this retreat in your statement, and perhaps you can remind me of it. But you say that really the discussions were about the ANC's foreign policy, key things that really needed to be addressed on the agenda.
Remember, the thrust of the ANC's foreign policy has always been about the Pan-Africanism and the principle of anti-imperialism. Those are the issues that we started the day one of the retreat focusing on. Of course, they were delivered by the former state president and the former president of the ANC, President Mbeki, who elaborated into all those issues on how we can bring together the unity of the people of Africa, and also the reflection of all of us in the retreat on the global changing geopolitical issues that are currently at play.
Yeah, because it's interesting because you seem to be highlighting the issue of the ANC's position on foreign relations where Africa is concerned. And I'm keen to hear why that is such an important point. You've got, for instance, the theme being a reflection on the ANC's commitment to progressive internationalism. And then in some of your, I suppose, strategic outcomes and really what must be done, you've talked about a push for more just, equitable, humane, democratic international relations. Yes, but you've also said that you want to focus on African unity, Pan-Africanism. Is this, I note here that the Middle East is not a big part, in fact, not even mentioned once in this press statement. Is that intentional? Is that to say that the ANC is moving away from being outspoken about the war in Gaza and certainly with Israel?
Naledi will never move away from that. You know, even in the government, in the previous administration, you saw the ANC deployees leading the charge in going to the ICJ on the genocide case, where we presented that case. What is happening in the Middle East, we reflected on it at length in the retreat. We agreed that the people of Palestine deserves to be given a right to their self-determination, and also the genocide that is currently taking place needs to come to an end. We saw a deployee of the ANC coming in to brief us with regard to what is happening in government, in line with the presentation of the memorial that we presented to the ICJ, where we were told that the outcome of that memorial will be had in the next 6 months. So we're looking forward to having victory in that regard, wherein the situation in Gaza, the situation in Palestine will be considered by ICJ as a genocide that is taking place in in Palestine.
Yeah, so the Government of National Unity and certainly the coalition with the Democratic Alliance and some of the pressures that the DA is putting on how outspoken the country and certainly the party, that being the ANC, has been on the Middle East, perhaps even Ukraine and Russia, not deterring the ANC from a policy point of view. I mean, was that a discussion point at this retreat, especially at a time when you've got the federal chair of the Democratic Alliance, Helen Zille, who was quoted at the South African Chamber of Commerce, UK, saying that your party, the African National Congress, is obsessive about having control over international relations?
I think first and foremost, Naledi, we need to appreciate that the ANC has suffered an electoral setback in the May 2024 general and provincial elections, wherein we had to bring in other parties so that we can co-govern and form a government of national unity. But in that, it doesn't take away the existing government decisions in the form of cabinet resolutions that are there, wherein the cabinet of South Africa is still pursuing the issue of the ICJ case in favor of the Palestinian people, so that whatever that is happening in Palestine must be regarded as genocide against the people of Palestine. And DA can't come now and want to reinvent the wheel. The decision of cabinet, they still stand up until they come to cabinet and request for a review of such policies. So the ANC will continue to persuade the government of the national unity to pursue the case that we are pursuing in the ICJ.
But do you agree with the utterances by the federal chair that the ANC is obsessing over international relations?
Remember, with regard to the South Africa's foreign policy, there hasn't been any change so far. So whatever the federal chair of the DA is saying will not even give effect to what is happening in terms of our foreign policy. We will continue to champion our foreign policy in the manner in which it was agreed upon by the previous sixth administration. And I believe even to date, there hasn't been any change towards our foreign policy. We'll continue to request for dialogues in areas where there are conflicts, and also respect the rule of law and also human rights issues. So those are the pillars of our foreign policy, and I think the DA can come now and make noise on these issues because it's what has been happening at the government level.
Yeah, but as a member of the ANC's International Relations Committee, what does it look like when the ANC sits in a room with the Democratic Alliance to talk about international relations? We just recently came back from the BRICS summit where the president came out emphatically saying that we enjoy a long-standing alliance and friendship with Russia. And of course, the Democratic Alliance's leader, who is also agricultural minister, also at that summit saying, no, I don't agree with that, very publicly as well. So when the DA and the ANC sit together prior to even the negotiations or even post-negotiations for GNU, and you discuss the position of the Middle East, what's the tone of that conversation?
I think where we are as the ANC, we trust in the presidency of President Cyril Ramaphosa that he will continue to lead the GNU, of course respecting the policy position of the African National Congress. And with regard to the behavior and the conduct of certain ministers, that will leave it to the president and together with the cabinet to try to reprimand them and try to show them that in government you just don't wake up and do as you wish, because there are processes that are at play in government for you to advance a particular policy change or a policy review.
Yeah, okay, we did just have the medium-term budget policy statement, and as part of that, a discussion around the resources that are being allocated to DIRCO, and I know you are also sitting here speaking to us as the committee member for international relations as the ANC, but also I'd like to speak to you in your capacity as DIRCO Deputy Minister now, if you'll allow me. The resources that DIRCO has at play here for this application and the work that has been done with the ICJ to, I suppose, call the Israel out and accountable using those claims of genocide. What does that cost the South African government?
Remember, with regard to the medium-term strategic framework, the resources allocated to DERCO are not specifically meant for the ICJ case. There are several programs that DERCO is pursuing, and also in light with the fact that South Africa will start to resume its presidency of the G20. So a chunk of the resources will be channeled along the programs that are within the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, not precisely to deal with the ICJ case. I think that narrative can't really arise now that the budget that we just got from Treasury is going to be directed towards the ICJ case. There are several programs within the department that are key towards the championing of our foreign policy internationally.
But for this case with the ICJ, what is it costing the state? Is it correct to say the Treasury has had to find 95 million rand for the case against Israel?
The cost effect towards the case, they will keep on fluctuating. We can't for certain now, Naledi, say it will cost us that much. So we are still to look into the legal cost. Of course, now I spoke about the memorial that we've just presented in the ICJ process, and we believe in that the cost will keep on moving from one figure to another. So we are not fixated towards a particular figure, but the resources ought to be made available by the government of South Africa, because it's a cabinet decision to really pursue that case in the International Criminal Court of Justice.
So you're not going to give me a figure?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Let me ask you this, because as part of the statement then coming out of this retreat of the African National Congress to look particularly at your international relations or foreign policy, I think that's a better, neater word, if you will, you have again talked about your commitment towards the enhancement of African peace and stability. No figure that you'll give me for what the case at ICJ will cost us, but what, if at all, are the resources that the South African government has dedicated towards the civil war in Sudan that has seen at least 62,000 people dead in the past year?
Remember what is happening in the continent of Africa with regard to our peacekeeping missions. We are working not only as DERCO, we are also having SANDF on board and other sister departments that are mandated to deal with peacekeeping measures within the continent. So the cost effect can't come from DERCO alone. It's a broader government plan to really make it a point that there is peace and security in the continent of Africa, and it's in line also with our foreign policy, because the thrust of our foreign policy, as I've alluded to earlier, is centered around issues of Pan-Africanism and also anti-imperialism within the continent.
Okay. I'm going to leave you there because, again, you're not giving me a figure and you're talking about, I suppose, the work done with other various departments. I was looking for the specific investment with DERCO or the allocation by DERCO to focus on the war in Sudan that has cost also tens of thousands of lives. No clear sort of, details around the allocations from DERCO.
If I speak on figures, it will just be rough estimates, and I don't think it will be in the interest of even our viewers at home to be given figures that are not even accurate.
Okay. All right. Perhaps some reflections of the elections that we've just observed in Botswana. 58 years we saw BDP in power. They have lost that power. The position of the African National Congress?
We took a stand where, we issued a statement as the ANC where we congratulated the people of Botswana in the manner in which they've exercised their democratic right in choosing the government that they believe it will take Botswana into the next level of governance. And I think we are willing as the government of the ANC to work together with the newly elected president of Botswana, Comrade Duma Boko, and together with his cabinet that is going to be formulating in the near future. Because we believe in the sovereignty of every state within the continent. So we can't go to Botswana and dictate to the people of Botswana who must lead them. They've made their own choice. the choice that is there as the government of the ANC and also as the ANC leaders who are going to be working with the leaders of the government of Botswana.
Right. Well, we thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it on this Monday evening. And I know it's been a busy weekend and also a busy week ahead. Thandi Moraka is, of course, a member of the ANC's International Relations Committee. That's the hat she's